Folks from around the world, welcome to the IR4 podcast. My name is Jeremy Alexander Newsom. This is Brian Masterson, and we have with us today Mr. Matt Delong, who's a good friend of mine, business associate, friend, trader, just all-around great guy. And we're going off of the crypto sphere a little bit. I know we've been talking about crypto, blockchain nonstop for weeks. And so at some point, we wanted to discuss something else. So we're talking SaaS models. We're getting a little sassy today. Software as a service. I stole your line. Giving credit to him. Let's hop into this. My friend Matt, so tell us, tell the viewers, just give a little bit of background on who you are, what you've accomplished, and what you're doing going forward.
Sure. So I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I've kind of been known as an entrepreneur. I've started 15 companies. The last 3 or 4 were software as a service companies. I've been on the entrepreneur founder side of things. I've been on the angel investor due diligence side of things as well. I've seen any and everything crazy that's happened with software as a service over the past many years, including at the end of 2015, I was able to sell my most recent software as a service company.
Which is exciting, man. That's always exciting to sell a business. Create one and then
I'm assuming you went to college or higher education, received some type of degree. Is that a degree you can get? Is a software-based degree, or was it business administration?
So typically, the typical path that most people take is computer science, kind of a general.
Got C minus in computer science 101. So I didn't pursue.
You got a C minus in that?
Yeah, I can't code worth shit.
Well, that's better than what I had. So I actually went to business school for a few semesters. I dropped out. And
we were talking about that the other day.
And I thought, I got to do something to keep challenging myself. So I subscribed to, and I didn't have any money. I was broke. So I subscribed to Entrepreneur Magazine every month for 10 years.
Wow.
And I decided I was going to read it from cover to cover. And that was kind of my education, how I learned.
Really? That's a cool story. So are you still doing that now or no?
What
I'm practicing it.
That's right.
So you said you've been in software as a service for how long now?
The version I launched was 2008, so right at 10 years.
So 2008, so about 10 years. And what got you into that space?
So the original software that we created, I worked at a web design company and created a e-commerce product. And it was the old school download and install model, kind of the distributed. You guys are probably too young to realize that us older folks, when we wanted software in the old days, you have to go to Best Buy and buy it on a CD, right?
Upload it.
What? Yeah. So if you wanted the latest QuickBooks, go to Best Buy or Circuit City or H.H. Gregg or whatever, and you get the CD and you load it and you install it.
Sure.
Back in the old days, it was like little floppy drive, floppy disk kind of things. But to answer your question, I created this downloadable product, and software as a service was all the rage. We thought we were kind of late to the game in 2007. So we decided to take this downloadable product and convert it into a software as a service product. Does that make sense? So we did this migration from downloading and installing and managing versions into this web-based, everything's automatically installed and downloaded, and it spins up servers.
So you guys went to the store, purchased all the different services, whatever they are, downloaded them onto your server, your database, and then you had everything there. So therefore, did you have to have a license agreement with these?
No. So it was the software we had created. So I ran a different software.
Okay.
So we had created all the intellectual property ourselves. We had in-house developers, marketing, sales, all that. So we created the software product itself.
Okay.
And then and this was in 2001. In 2008, we decided to adapt it to become a software as a service product.
Okay.
And software as a service, for those who don't know, is...
Let's say you read my mind. You read my mind.
It's basically, it just refers to the way that software is distributed. So you're not going to Best Buy and buying, you're not downloading and installing anything. Things like Microsoft Windows, that kind of is the downloadable install kind of approach. Not everything can be software as a service. Obviously, operating systems or there's some pieces of code that can't be hosted remotely. But that's kind of what software as a service denotes, is the method of distributing software, how it is being distributed. And the cool thing, what I really like about it, is it has stable cash flow, right? So you have X number of customers who are paying you X number of dollars a month. Every month, your sales and marketing guys are adding a stack of a layer of customers on top of it, and assuming you're keeping the existing clients happy, that's going to just grow over time. There's always some kind of churn, 0.5% or some minimal amount of people who go out of business or do whatever, who kind of drop off. But the cool thing is you don't have to download and install it. You don't have anything to install. You have stable cash flow. You have kind of a pay-as-you-go model. So a lot of people may not want to fork out $400 for a piece of software, but $30 a month, even though over time, obviously it costs more, $30 a month, pay-as-you-go, that's,
That's very interesting. So what would your, right now, as far as software as a service, kind of give me some of the companies that are just out there now that would familiarize people with what a software as a service company would be.
Right. So a software as a service company would be something like a Salesforce.com.
Okay.
If you're worked on any sales teams, it's kind of a standard tool that you're given on day one.
Salesforce, yeah.
Right. Salesforce.com is kind of like the Mac Daddy, the original.
Yeah.
They used to have these little things that say software with the little Ghostbuster X cron. Like no software. It's kind of funny because they are software. What they meant is no downloadable kind of software. Office 365 is one. Obviously, that's Microsoft. Microsoft, still a big piece of their revenue comes from traditional license like Windows. When I say software as a service, I typically mean companies like a Shopify, Salesforce.com, LogMeIn, Qualys.
What about Photoshop? Does Photoshop?
They have a Creative
Adobe,
Cloud.
I should say.
Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you download and install that though, don't you? Or is it web based?
That's a good question. It's both. It's really it's a good blend.
I haven't used Photoshop in years.
Yeah. Well, so CRM, which is Salesforce, which is a CRM. So you have like all the CRMs are a software as a service. HubSpot,
Trello,
Greenrobe, LogMeIn, all those. Right. Okay.
The original customer management system was like Act. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's probably before your time. Act used to be this big, huge piece of software. You have to install it on a server, and then all your users would have to set up accounts. It was kind of clunky to manage. I think they're still around. I don't know if they probably like that. But something else would be like Intuit. It was very famous for TurboTax and QuickBooks. Yeah. They have a downloadable version if you have to have it on your hard drive. But they also have web-based versions, right? So QuickBooks Online, any small business in the world is familiar with QuickBooks.
So you began the journey in 2001, but 2008 is when you brought it to market. Since 2008, what have you done in the space? You said you sold your company 2 years ago, or
the end of 2015.
Okay, fantastic. Cool, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
But what was that journey like from 2008 to 15?
So it was interesting. We had some ups and downs. We wanted to launch on April Fool's Day. We thought it'd be cool and funny and.
And well, I guess we should know, what service were you actually providing?
Okay. So we sold e-commerce software. It's similar to Shopify.
Got it.
We kind of did a lot of customization stuff and the features that we built in were a lot more. They were a lot more useful for people doing business internationally. So if you wanted to sell products in English, Spanish, and Portuguese in one store, that's kind of what we were known for. Right?
Got it.
And we had engineers, we had salespeople, we had marketing, we had accounting, finance, all kinds of different people that made up the team. But to answer your question, in 2008 we launched. I personally took like a $200,000 line of credit from a bank to start all this because I didn't have any money.
True entrepreneur.
Yeah. So you have to think about this. You have to really think about this. I thought. I actually passed out, I'll tell you, because of the stress of it.
Sure.
I mean, you launched this, you're ready to go. We got one customer the first month. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Whoa.
And then it was slow going, and then it finally took off. But we ended up getting thousands of clients in hundreds of countries, and the hard part was. Trying to incentivize all these salespeople for their own different things that they want to accomplish and sell. The hard part was trying to build a strong team because there was many years where we didn't have any. We had 0 people leaving. We're adding new. And then around 2011, everything just kind of went nuts. Like we had a hacker from Vietnam break in and steal 250,000 credit card numbers. So most people wouldn't talk openly about the sores and their the scars that they have.
That's a huge one.
So we ended up, kind of living through that and moving on. But it was an adventure.
So we switched seats during that quick break.
That's Matt's good side. We want to catch his good side.
We want to make sure you guys saw how ripped he truly was. This guy gyms a lot. He runs. You run a lot, by the way.
I used to, yeah.
Yeah. Volleyball champion. We want to make sure people saw how fit you were. So, anyway, talking about the entrepreneurial spirit. Matt goes out. He gets a $200,000 line of credit. Let's talk a little bit about that, because in regards to going to a bank and trying to get a loan, what do you have to do, or who do you have to talk to, or how do you get that? Because you literally go, here's an idea that I have, and I hope it works, give me money. More or less, right?
So it's a little more complicated than that, but most banks won't finance. So most banks want to look at 2 years of your financials.
Yeah.
So if you're a brand new company, good luck.
You don't have it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 2 years with a zero.
So did you use prior experience?
So because we had this software company that we've been running from 2001 to 2000, then to 2007, we had that. We're profitable. We were growing every year. Okay. We had something to kind of tee up the ball.
Sure.
When we had this conversation with the bank that we worked with. So the significance of this, though, is that if things went badly, I would have a huge debt that I had to pay back personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd have no job and have to try to figure out what's next. So that was a little bit unnerving. I did. There's like 2 summers in a row I actually fainted because the stress was so overwhelming.
That's insane.
And so you're not pushing yourself enough until like you physically cannot take what your brain is put you into. Yeah. So it was wild.
Matt Delong quote. We haven't worked hard enough until we faint.
Push yourself till you faint.
Yeah.
I love it.
So luckily I was safe. I was driving at the time. I was driving up to meet my family. They had driven up the week before to this little camping thing, and I think it was in Kentucky. And so I was on I-65.
Yeah.
And it's the dead of July. It's hot outside and the air is running. And I just my heart starts racing and I just start sweating like crazy. I'm like, oh my goodness, what in the world is happening to me? And so I saw this exit, this little rest stop. So I exited. I remember opening the door, taking 2 steps, and then it went black.
Wow.
If you've ever fainted before, your vision goes from color to black and white, and your field of view just goes. And I woke up, and there's paramedics standing over me.
Holy shit!
And,
and this is just because
the stress of it. Yeah.
You're like, man, I
got a huge debt that I have to pay back, and this is over 10 years ago. But yeah,
man.
And the first thing I said when I woke up was, "Where's my phone?"
Oh my god!
Of course, I need to text my wife.
So what gets you? I mean, I guess we can hint a little bit on the entrepreneurial, because I obviously I think we all have our own experiences. But at what point in the company's business in your life did you feel comfortable thinking, okay, man, I'm good now. I've made it. I'm comfortable. Obviously, as entrepreneurs, as competitors with ourselves, we always want to achieve more and become better. A better version of ourselves. Same thing with our companies. But when did you get to that point where, okay, now I'm not going to faint anymore?
I don't know, because I never really felt like, okay, we're safe. Because the moment you do that, competitors or a lot of things can happen. So, I mean, I felt a little safer after I sold it. The 2011 timeframe where we had hackers break in, that was obviously a very troubling feeling.
Yeah.
And I owned 95% of the company at the time.
Yeah.
Right? So there's the downside to owning a large percentage.
Sure.
If something bad happens,
sure.
you're shouldering it all. But when I actually sold the company, I felt a little better about what how things were progressing. But it's this constant challenge of trying to hustle. In football, it's the next first down, but it's the same thing in growing software company, whatever the next plateau that you're trying to get to. It's a constant. And when you have teams of 10, 20 people, they all don't necessarily think the same way you do. More times than not, they don't. They're there for their paycheck, or they have their own little motivation. So it's really tough to get everyone rowing in the same direction.
So in this industry, is the biggest challenge when running a company, software as a service, is the biggest challenge hacker prone and building firewalls and protecting all that data, or what are some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced from?
So some of it is security. Core Commerce is PCI compliant even today. I help them with that a little bit, even though I'm not the CEO and don't run anymore. I'm still a 20% owner of the company. So security is important. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year on that. The real challenge kind of cropped up around 2010 till now is it's really a job seekers market, right? So what used to cost us $16-20 an hour is multiples of that today for technical talent, right? So and then you have all kind of new tech companies popping up who are well funded, who we've lost several people to companies like Emma Clint Smith.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They lost some of their companies to one of my other investments, LeanKit, and it's just circle of people. You're losing good talent, and so if you can imagine someone who's been with you 6-8 years, and they give you 2 weeks notice. I mean, how do you replace that?
Right.
2 weeks notice, or even a month's notice. How do you replace that? So the person, the people, the soft part of this was always the biggest challenge for me.
Right. What in regards to hiring talent for that, what's something you look for? I mean, because you mentioned earlier marketing being a key aspect, saying like, okay, now that I have this, how do I get other people to use it? How do I incentivize them to use this software as a service? How do I get people to use that? So are you looking for great sales people? Are you looking for good marketing? You're looking for good programming, and then you can build other talents with? So I guess the question is, if there's one really strong talent and someone you're hiring, what would that be?
So for me, the most important thing is that whether or not they can kind of be a free thinker, right? So universities can give you knowledge. I always think of it this way: is universities, colleges give you knowledge. The experience comes over time. Right? Sure. So what's interesting, in an interview with someone, I would say, tell me about your experience. And they would say, well, I took a class, I have a certificate. Like, tell me about your real experience, right? So like working with a professor in a laboratory setting is one thing.
Yeah.
Go work with some Fortune 500 companies who have very different expectations, deadlines, requirements, expectations. And that's a very different experience.
Yeah, sure.
But for me, people who can think freely and who meshed with the rest of the team is important.
I don't think you would have hired us if you asked our college
experience. I know. Whole different experience.
Oh boy.
But a lot of people ask, do you have to have a college degree? And you really don't. I'm kind of a little bit of an oddball where I dropped out of, I say business school, but it was community college.
Hey, so
I dropped, so that's all I could get with my straight C student high school grades. But there's a lot of, like, MTSU, there's plenty of companies or colleges that offer computer science.
Sure.
I have people ask frequently, what's the best way to do it? And there are, in the past 3 to 4 years, there's a school called Nashville Software School. Mm-hmm. And it's a tech school. It's 6 months in and out. Mm-hmm. And I think it's $10,000 or $15,000. And at the end of that, they literally help you try to get a job. And so they have relationships with software companies to help place their students. Yeah. And they get like a headhunter fee.
Sure.
And so it's usually junior developer, junior level. But over 3, 4, 5 years, you can become senior level. You can kind of move on up. So if I was given the choice between 4 years of computer science or 6 months of a very, very modern, they use all the modern tools we use, all the same kind of procedures, all of it, I would easily choose the one that's much quicker.
Sure.
So you're building this company. Yep. You're hiring these people. You're passing out off freeways.
That only happened 3 times.
You get to a point in the business life where it's mature, it's proven. Do you actively go out and court people to discuss acquisition, or is this something that other companies come into you and say, "Hey, we like your products. We've researched it. We want to vet you. Perhaps want acquire you? How'd that process go down?
We had probably on a monthly basis people reaching out to us all the time, and they all have their own requirements. So like we're looking for someone who has at least 100 million in revenue, which we were smaller than that. They have all the requirements of what they're looking for. For what I did was I just decided I was burnt out. So after launching this company, and I had kind of a right-hand man who was a COO, worked with me 9 years. After the breach happened and all this lawsuits came pouring in and all this stuff.
That's 2011.
Yeah. All this stuff happened. I thought, you know what? I'm going to have to do something else because it's driving me nuts. Like the stress of it is like going to slowly kill me, give me a heart attack, whatever. So I decided to talk to some investment bankers, kind of like a business broker. And I hired a group in Miami. They took, I think they charged me $15,000-$20,000. They made a few phone calls. Of course, they always say, I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah.
But $15,000-$20,000 later, they made a few phone calls, said, too bad, so sad, you know.
Now, was that a one-time fee, or were they taking points on acquisition as well?
Yeah, so that was upfront plus a 5 to 6% success fee.
Yeah.
That didn't work out, so then I hired a group in Chicago, pretty much same exact thing. They charged a little more, same thing. So then I decided, you know what? I know a lot of technical people in Nashville. I'm going to start looking through LinkedIn, and I literally reached out to a dozen people on LinkedIn. A few people wrote me back. One guy who ended up buying my company, he said, Matt, give me some high-level numbers so, you know, you're not wanting an obscene amount of money relative to what the revenue was.
Right.
And so we did, and we met 3 or 4 days later, and we met every day for the next, every Wednesday for the next 6 months, talking about, you know, all the transition, how's this going to work, what do I tell my staff, the whole process. And part of it was you have to really think through all the moving parts of selling a company. So what happens if we had an office in downtown Franklin? So what happens if he wants to move it to downtown Nashville, but I'm still stuck in my lease? Who pays that? Right? What about the internet service, all the contracts that we have in place that service that location? You know, what happens? Is there allowances for that? You have to think through all the moving parts.
Right.
Do they decide to continue with all the staff that I had in place? Do they replace them? Lots of moving parts, but we worked through that.
Quick sidebar. Matt is a LinkedIn Jedi. And he is the Obi-Wan Kenobi of LinkedIn.
I use the Force.
He does use the Force.
I'm not even a Premier member.
I'm not either, but you are. You're not? He does so many things on LinkedIn. It's phenomenal. I don't even know how to use LinkedIn. You were asking us off camera how we met. So Matt sends me an email via LinkedIn, a message in LinkedIn, which, by the way, I get 1,000 of these a day. Mostly from people who are trading some Forex binary options, like trying to
binary options.
Yeah, and they're just asking me these crazy questions. And it's usually they're just spam or whatever.
Right.
But I could tell that it was like a genuine, actual email, and I was like, who emails on LinkedIn? And so anyway, he's like, hey, let's meet up. And I was like, let's do it. So anyway, we met at Hattie B's for some hot chicken. Yeah. I believe it was Hattie B's. Yeah. And anyway, me, him, and I think Sean and Blake Anderson. Anyway, we just met
regarding trading?
Yeah. So he reached out initially because he wanted to trade equities. This was it's about 2 years ago. So after he sold his business and everything. And so that's how we know each other specifically.
All you traders, man. There's a lot. There's just so many traders running around here.
There's a lot in Nashville.
It's weird.
There's a lot in Nashville.
Yeah. And there's a lot of Patreons for traders.
Yes. Shout out to you guys. So we were talking about, you were mentioning buyouts and acquisitions and points and all that kind of cool stuff. My question, Matt, and kind of dive into the angel investing portion of your experience. So let's take it from the step of two steps. Let's say that someone has a company. What would they be looking for in order to sell it? Like if they think that their company is worth being bought, what should the stats look like, or what should some of the stats they should look over? And then we're going to get into, okay, you want to buy a company, what should you look for? Because they might be the same thing or they might be different. I don't know.
Is that how you got involved with angel investing? You sold your company, you're like, okay, now I know the market space. I'm going to go see who's young and out there, maybe play with them a little bit, give them some capital, or...
No, so I did some angel investing before I even sold the company.
Okay. Oh, really? Why is that?
So it doesn't work quite like you think it would.
I feel like there would be a conflict of interest there.
What's that?
I feel like there would be a conflict of interest if you're investing in other. Well, I guess it depends on what.
I mean, they're not competing companies, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, we were in the Core Commerce was in the e-commerce space. I made some investments in some media and project management. Very different kind of space.
Sure, totally.
So, what was your question?
Well, so we asked him like 9 questions.
Yeah. All right, let's start slow. I'm sorry. I'll retract mine. You go ahead.
Yeah, calm down.
So what is
I know we're excited.
the stats?
Well, yeah. So if someone wants to sell their business, let's say, I mean, he's a business owner. I'm a business owner. You're a business owner. So if someone wants to sell, let's say I want to sell the IR4 podcast to somebody. What would the stats as a business owner be to even look over and see if you're even worth selling or what you would be able to be sold at?
Yeah. So really there's 2 schools of thought there. This is all the stuff I learned through the process.
Okay.
We used to be, Core Commerce was growing at a very fast pace, barely making any money every month, sometimes losing. And so we had this epiphany where companies like venture capital companies, they're looking for 40 to 80% a year revenue growth, right? That's one school of thought. Losing money is fine, losing cash, burning huge amounts of capital every month, every quarter, that's fine. They're okay with that. And they call it the land and expand, right? They're trying to grow their top line revenue as quick as possible. That's kind of companies like Shopify. Some of those are in the high growth kind of mode. The other school of thought is more like private equity, where they want more moderate growth, but you have to be profitable. So we've been in both camps before. There was some period where we were in one and we had to make some radical adjustments to get to the other. But the gentleman who ended up buying my company, I asked him after like the 4th meeting, I said, what is it about us that attracted your attention? He said, you were very profitable. So we were netting 35% at the bottom line. After everything was paid, salaries, bonuses, every 35%. So a dollar comes in 35% at the bottom, 35 cents at the bottom. So in order to sell your company, you have to think about, who am I attracting? You have to be in one of these 2 buckets. Because there's 2 different schools of thought on how to make money off. So when you acquire a company, you have to think about, okay, I buy it for X amount, X number of $1 million. Where do I go from there? So you have to think about, am I attracting the high growth? Am I a high growth company? Am I growing 80% plus a year? If not, am I profitable? Because what ends up happening is there was some lull in our history where we weren't really profitable and we weren't growing, right? So you have to be in one of the 2 buckets. And you got to decide. You can't just be in between floating around.
Sure. So
you have to be in one or the other. And so one of the things that we did was we kind of hit a growth plateau. So we made some cutbacks, and we went from being, losing $30,000 a month or whatever to some huge positive number, flipped it the other way. So you really have to think about which bucket you want to be in and which type of buyer you're attracting. When you go to talk to investment banks, they're going to say, who are your ideal type of buyers? Not just like generally like web hosting companies or payment companies, credit card processing companies, but they want specifics. Which credit card processing company? Not just web hosting, but let's talk about GoDaddy. Let's talk, who do we know at the M&A department at GoDaddy, right? So you go through this process of generating who are the ideal types of buyers.
Interesting. Yeah. Dude, I could ask you 1.5 million questions right now.
Angel investing.
Yeah, I'd like to. There's just so many. So you go after this.
Well, you just talk about my.
Well, yeah. Tell me. So, what? First of all, what is angel investing? We've got my question to everyone else. Number 2 is, I hear angel investing, I automatically think I need $900 million to be an angel investor. So, how much money do you need to be an angel investor? And
that's what you think. You think you need $900 million?
You need a lot of money to be an angel investor. Yeah, sure.
You don't need $900 million.
You don't need $900 million. How much do you need, and what is it?
So, angel $900 million.
I'm like, shit, you have $900 million.
So you don't need $900 million, just to clarify.
Okay.
Most startup companies, there's a Nashville Entrepreneur Center downtown that helps companies through this process. But most, like the way I think about it is a little bit different than most people do. But on general, a company that's been around a year, they've got 2 or 3 co-founders. They kind of work for free, kind of volunteering their time. They're trying to put this company together to launch. And of course, when you get into needing like full-time staff with benefits, health insurance, office space, all that costs money. And if you only have 2 pennies to rub together, what do? How do you get through that?
You take out a personal $200,000 loan.
That's one way.
That's one way. But if you have zero revenue, that won't work. You can't do that. And this was pre-2008, 2009 too, when I did all this. So the requirements are very different today.
They're a lot harder.
As
This is
lending,
true. Yeah.
Right? So we kind of skated by. They ended up terming out our loan, so they converted from a line of credit to like a fixed term. We ended up paying off like in no time. But the process though is like with an angel investment is you hear about a company, a brand new startup. Maybe they've been around a little bit. Maybe they're pre-revenue, post-revenue. Maybe they've got some kind of revenue. My requirement is I want to see some revenue, right? So I like to see that there's some kind of idea in place that clients are willing to pay for. You and I can spend X number of dollars building an app that no one cares about.
Sure.
Wasted millions. And I've literally seen companies raise $2 and $3, $4 million, build an app, zero customers. So one of the things I like to ask, I like to learn about these companies, and you can find them on LinkedIn. One of the most popular sites now is AngelList, so angel.co.co. And so you can look at all the startup companies. You can, if you want to work for a startup company, New York, San Francisco, wherever, you can go on there and see what jobs are out there, whether they're raising money, how much they've raised, that kind of thing, who their investors are, what other companies that investors have invested in their portfolio of startups. So you don't really need tons of money. It depends on how many investments you want to make. I just got a book last week. I haven't started it yet, by Jason Calacanis. He's one of the big gurus in technology startup companies. He was one of the early investors in Uber, lots of big names in his portfolio. And he was just like this, a couple guys talking. This is pre-Uber, right?
Wow.
In the very, very early stage. And so angel investing is just basically giving startup capital to entrepreneurs who have some kind of an idea. And the idea is formed at different stages. There are some who it's just the back of a napkin. That's all they got. They have an idea. There are some who have built a product. There are some who have built a product and have paying customers. That's where I like to play. I like to get involved there. Yeah. So, for example, Lean Kit was a company 5-10 miles down the road here in downtown Franklin. I invested with them just because I love the idea and I love the team. They had a really strong team, and they were raising, I think, $10 million at the time. They've since gone to raise beyond that. And so I invested money with them because I liked the company and I liked the X. So I like companies that have revenue versus no revenue, because if you think about it mathematically, if you have a chunk of money, let's say it's $10 million, if you have a staff and zero revenue, that's going to get depleted much quicker than you have some revenue that goes back into the coffers just to slow the burn rate.
Sure.
And so one of the things I like to ask is companies who've already raised money, how much have you raised and what are your current revenues, right? So ideally, for me, I like to see a 3-to-1 ratio. So if you've raised $3 million, I'd like to see after that $3 million is deployed that you're on track to make $1 million in revenue, right? Kind of a 3-to-1 ratio.
Makes sense.
Now, I've literally met companies who've raised $3 million. It's all gone. They don't know where the next payroll is coming from, literally. And you ask them, what is your revenue? $500 a month. So you have to think about all these moving parts.
Yeah.
Do I want to give them more money and hope that they figure out what they're doing?
Sure.
And I would ideally think that angel investing is really for companies who have some kind of they've kind of launched off the runway and they're trying to get higher versus trying to get the wheels off the asphalt.
Cash advances, credit cards. Should you do it? If you're going to start up a company, we were talking about a lot of stuff off the camera.
Would say no. I would say under the right circumstances.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I mean, when you're right, you're right. When you know you're right, when you know this is what you need to do. I mean, at some point, you have to take a leap, but in the right direction, like you mentioned.
So, yeah, my wife's going through this right now. She just got her personal training license, and she's like, do I open my own gym? Do I do this? Do I do that? And she's really at a hard point in her career, because she's never taken that leap of faith, which us three are familiar with being entrepreneurs, but that's one of the most scariest things I've ever had to do is so my angel investment, we were talking about your angel investment, you taking on a line of credit for a $5,000, $8,000 to bootstrap your company. I sold my dad's 1989 Cadillac Brougham out of the garage when I was 23 years old on Craigslist to a Russian mob guy in Toledo, Ohio. Moved to Nashville, $4,000 in my pocket, and that was my seed capital.
Wow.
I probably blew like $2,000 like partying in Nashville, being a young 20-year-old. But man, like that was my angel investment.
How old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay, yeah.
But
29.
But like what you said, it's this gut feeling, and you just gotta go, and you gotta believe in it, and if you don't,
At some point, yeah.
you're gonna why waste your whole life sitting there when you get to the end of it thinking, man, I wish I would have done that.
So tell me about fear. Are people more afraid of losing money? Are people more afraid of being wrong? Or are people afraid of like ruining their reputation? Because that's all that holds people back. It's like if you say the reason you're not doing something, there is a fear there. All you have to do is figure out what it is. For me, when I was starting companies, it was really just my reputation, because that's, in a way, all you have. That's what I'm afraid of, is if I'm wrong, my reputation's going to be ruined.
I didn't give a shit about my reputation. Mine was more fear of failure.
Okay. So what do you think a lot of people about it?
Yeah, I think most people are probably a fear of losing money. And if you're borrowing money from friends and family to launch this thing, the pressure kind of mounts a little bit more.
For sure.
So it makes family reunions and Christmas and Thanksgiving rough when you lost $100,000.
Oh my!
Sorry.
Hey Matt, you got that $10,000 for me that I loaned you a year and a half ago?
It is very tough.
It is what it is, but I think at the end of the day, you as entrepreneurs, you have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Sure, for sure.
This idea of everything has to be nice and warm and fuzzy. It's just not that way. You're literally going through a battlefield, right? So most people, before they start a company, they think of it like a zip line where I see where I'm going to go. It's a straight line and we're there.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
it's
hell
more
no.
like it's kind of like sailing. Have you guys ever been sailing before, where you're adjusting to the wind? Things happen. Oh, yeah. The wind just dies. You go behind an island. The wind shadow you just kind of go to a lull.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what to do. You have to plow forward. But I think overall, America in general is a little risk averse. Like risk is a 4-letter word to be avoided at all costs. And we all have friends and family who are a little risk averse. And as a trader, I attract profit by taking risks. So if I'm not taking a risk, I'm not making money. So what happens if I am afraid to take a $100 risk? What happens if it's $1,000 risk, $10,000, $200,000, whatever X dollar risk is? And so we talked about this the other day. Is America in general? It's okay. I mean, it's not okay for the average American to invest in a hedge fund, right? You have to be an accredited investor. You have to have certain net worth requirements. Why? Because of the risk, right? Mm-hmm. But you can go buy a lottery ticket, right? So let's do this cross comparison. $50,000 in a hedge fund, $50,000 in lottery tickets. What will come ahead?
Sure.
I mean, probability wise. Now you might get lucky and win the Powerball, 300 million, 400 million, whatever it is now, right? You might, but probability wise, that ain't gonna happen.
Or going to the casino, or going to the racetrack and betting the ponies.
The ponies.
You got hardworking Americans that are addicted to that gambling lifestyle, but. Yeah,
but you think about it, it's okay to buy lottery tickets.
Yeah,
that's safe. It's not okay to invest in hedge funds.
It's contradictory. Yeah. So I would say you are a proven and successful entrepreneur. You've sold your first company and been a part of some other ones as an investor, which you've said have closed or sold. Where are you at now in your professional career? How old are you? We're
22.
You're 42, so you're still young.
Puppy.
Where do you see yourself going? What's your next step? And then to piggyback off that question, where is the SaaS industry moving into?
Let me finish up with the SaaS question first.
Okay, sure.
We'll split it. So SaaS companies, I think you're going to see more launch of companies that use artificial intelligence and machine learning. So companies, there are companies that a friend of mine texted to me just the other day, one I had never heard of, but they actually, if you're going to go hire 5-10 people for your team, they actually have these bots have one-on-one conversations with each of your candidates, like in a chat pane.
Oh, wow.
And you would say, tell me about your experience with X. And they would expand about, really, tell me more. And they log all that, put it together, and they'll rank you upload your job requirements, and they'll rank how well candidate A or B fits the job description.
Wow.
They give you like an internal score.
But I still think that
wild.
there is a human element and human factor in hiring those people.
Absolutely. I would never hire someone I never talked to.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, one of the other things that you'll see is you'll see some more acquisitions. So private equity deals kind of slowed the last year or two, but software private equity, acquiring private equity companies that acquire software as service companies, that's still been on a nice incline. So you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see more diversity in the workforce. So software developers are very much white males. It doesn't have to be that way. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
I think in all my years, I probably interviewed 2 or 3 females.
Needs to change for sure.
I don't know why it's that way. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's just, I don't know what the reasons are. But that's going to continue to be the workforce for technical engineers, technical talent is going to become more diverse.
Yeah, well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, with diversity comes new experiences, new knowledge, new ripples, new paths. For sure. Go.
So one other thing I think that'll happen too is that growing the top line at all costs can only work for so long. So for example, Snapchat is terrible. They spend like $5 to get $1 revenue. And like, we'll make it up on volume. Like literally.
Yeah.
I mean,
Snapchat.
that's like a new superpower. Losing $5 billion a quarter. But I think that's going to continue. You have to really think long and hard about that, because from my point of view, when I did all this, I was personally responsible for all this money that was borrowed and deployed. Right, it kind of leveraged. It's kind of like margin, right? I leveraged what I had and took some accelerated risks. Now, yes, the stress made me pass out a few times, but I managed through it, and I lived and learned, and I moved on. But that was a higher level of risk than if I just had $200,000 cash to put into the business. If it didn't work, it didn't work. So
yeah. So going forward, I mean, as far as that being a vision of what and how SaaS SaaS companies are going to change, what are some of your favorite, let's say top 3 to 5 favorite right now going into the future? What's your?
So I really like LogMeIn, which is LOGM,
okay.
Public stock market. They do. I've got some of their software on here. GoToMeeting. They do LastPass, those kind of products.
Okay.
They acquired Citrix year or two ago, and so they added
the big
more
purchase.
portfolio.
Yeah.
Actually, it's been it's been right at a year, I believe. So that's one of my favorites. LogMeIn. I really like Atlassian, which is the ticker symbol is TEAM team. They do Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket. They do a lot of Core Commerce still to this day uses them, and they allow teams to manage projects, kind of work together with QA teams and client requirements and all these different moving pieces. And then we use Core Commerce uses 2-week sprints. So we've done Agile and Kanban, but we typically do 2-week sprints, and so that's facilitated through. So that's one of the products for Atlassian. Salesforce.com, of course, is very, very popular.
Yeah.
Shopify is pretty popular. And then I really like Splunk.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, what do they do?
They do. We actually used them during our breach. We had you can install their software, and it would look for credit card numbers that weren't where they're supposed to. So it's security, credit card security. So them and Qualys, slightly different product, but it's QLYS on the stock market.
Okay,
those are probably my favorite.
Awesome.
Huge.
And as far as where you're at in your professional career, are you still an active angel investor? We do have some entrepreneurs who are subscribers to the IR4 podcast. Are you actively investing? Where are you at in your business career? Where do you see yourself going?
So I've done a few angel investments. It's been a year or two since I've done a new one. I do like SaaS, software as a service companies. It'd be cool to specialize in that. There's not enough of those in this area to do that, to specialize in the Nashville area. So I would love to do more. I like to get involved when there's some revenue, something, not just an idea on a napkin. The risk reward profile in that stage works better, it meets my personality. I was involved in a couple different angel investing groups. There was one in Brentwood called Nakira Partners that I was a member of a year and a half, and then there was one in Green Hills that was that Salou Venture Society. I was a part of them with Vic Gatto and some of those guys. So I am open to angel investments, but I like to have a little bit of revenue. It doesn't
Sure.
have to be a lot,
Sure.
but it needs to be more than 500.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as like what's next for me,
Yeah.
So I trade stocks full time for the most part now. I do a little bit of consulting with Core Commerce, the company I sold, working with the CEO. I consult with them a little bit, but I'm actually building an automated trading platform. That's what I'm really passionate about. And so I hired a group in New England back in July. We're on phase 2 right now, and we are building a system where you can write strategies, back test them over 20 years worth of market data, and then you can split test. So if I have a strategy that works really well, I can do a variation of it and create like an A/B test. So I'm comparing original strategy versus slight variation. And you'd be surprised how one little variation over 20 years worth of data has huge
Changes.
Right, huge,
Cool.
good or bad swings in
Right.
volatile swings in either direction. This new phase that they're working on, they're looking at different market conditions. They're looking at uptrend, downtrend, and ranging in high and low volatility. So 6 different scenarios, and each strategy that we create is tied to one of those 6 market conditions to determine what do I deploy. So if you're heavy short things, now's not the time, but it's going to be in that strategy whenever that market condition kind of is triggered. So something like early 2016, the first 2 months of last year, 2 years ago, was kind of choppy, got really soft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things went below the 250-day simple moving average, and so those strategies would have kicked on to short.
Right.
Just because something pulls back 2%, that's not really good
Right.
enough.
Totally.
So we have different rules. We have strategies that determine which strategic market condition, which SMC is triggered, and then which strategies belong to those. So if you think about a traditional backtest where it's some third-party tool, you're testing a specific strategy using whatever template, little add a moving average and a crossover, or 50 and 200, golden cross or whatever strategy you're using. You're testing that one strategy. You're not testing this encompassing system of multiple strategies that turn on and off at different times to make sure the strategies match the current market conditions.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, me and you both know we could talk about that for 7 hours.
No, I was gonna ask. I was actually gonna expand on that question. Are you planning on licensing that, or are you, okay? So this is strictly for you guys.
I'm going to be selfish with it.
Good.
That's right.
You should.
So the idea is it's getting plugged in. The paperwork's being completed now. It's going to run as an incubator fund, so pre-hedge fund, incubator fund, for 6 months or a year, whatever time frame is determined, to build a real track record before we go kind of soliciting investors.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Dude.
Awesome.
A lot of people ask about, am I going to license it? Or it's really for personal internal use.
Sure.
Cool.
And it'll be like
Good
a
for you.
secret weapon.
Good
Love
for
it.
you.
Are we going to have you back on this podcast? We have a million more questions.
Oh yeah.
Truly, thank you so much for your time. I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Matt.
it.
Yeah.
Folks from around the world, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the IR4 podcast. You are phenomenal. Love, live, learn, be incredible, and we'll see you next week.